Doggie Dayz is an RPG Maker VX Ace game created for the 2-week VX Ace Lite Cook-off contest. Sadly, I'm not sure what the rules of this contest were, and I'm too lazy to look them up. So this game will probably be measured with a stick that bears higher standards than the game was intended for. Story-wise, the game is about a dog named Buddy who is on a quest to rescue his owner who has been kidnapped. Albeit he doesn't set out on this quest until after running low on anything besides dog food. Along your journey to save your owner who has been trapped on a sealed island with a dark power that was defeated long ago, you'll team up with a cat, a chicken, and a cow. And that is basically the gist of the game. Though to be fair, this game doesn't try to really sell itself on its plot and more on its attempts at comedy, which are a bit of a mixed bag in my opinion. Some of the jokes and references to pop culture from days past are alright, while other jokes tend to fall rather flat. But considering the highly subjective nature of comedy, I probably shouldn't be overly critical about the game's attempts. On the other hand, I do find the use of the damsel in distress plot device in this game to leave it with a rather generic feel. And while being a generic game with a feel of been here and done that isn't necessarily something that I hold against the game to the point I feel it prevents it from being average, the point is that the game is average and is thus something that should be skipped over in favor of games like Trials and Tribulations or Remnants of Isolation. And yes, I realize there's some irony in me recommending a game that utilizes the damsel in distress plot device while chiding this game for doing the same. But Trials and Tribulations feels like it contains actual characters as well as a heart and soul, while Doggie Dayz in comparison feels like a rush job in need of life support. And considering some of the developer's comments on his game's forum page, he'd probably agree that the game suffered from a need to rush due to his poor internet connection and the small window of opportunity to work on the project. And I should apologize since I don't know if the developer is male or female, so I should also have mentioned she had to rush. I apologize for that. Visually speaking, the game is a bit on the weak side since it suffers from some rather bland dungeons that lack any sort of unique feel. It only piles on top of the story to make the game feel even more bland and unimpressive. And much the same can be said about the background music as well. Doggie Day's best point is its gameplay, which is a turn-based RPG. But this game does change things out a bit by having your characters possess both default skills and skills that are acquired by equipping various rings that represent magical and physical skills. This puts the player in a bind of choosing between superior stats or superior abilities. As such, this aspect of the game adds a level of strategy on top of what would normally be a rather generic and uninteresting combat system. The game also comes to the table with a reasonable amount of challenge, especially if you play the game on hard mode for your first playthrough. The game will prove to be highly challenging in the lead up to the final boss battle, albeit one could also argue that this facet of the game emphasizes the fact that the game contains a New Game Plus feature where your stats and levels roll over, so it actively encourages the player to beat the game on a lower difficulty setting before attempting the higher settings to some extent. The only complaint that comes to mind for the game in this area though is that the turtle ring still doesn't work despite the most recent update. Despite all of my complaints about Doggie Dayz being a rather generic and average title, the game isn't that bad of a way to kill time. And while not all the jokes are successful, the game will probably still get a chuckle or two out of just about anyone. So if you're looking for a way to kill an hour or two, this game is definitely worth checking out.